Run an engine without oil and what happens? The metal grinds on metal, generating a sickening heat that you can feel from across the room. The noise becomes unbearable, a screeching protest against the violence being done to the machinery, and then, inevitably, catastrophically, it explodes. The part seize, the system fails, and what was once a marvel of engineering becomes a smoking ruin. This is not a metaphor you need to stretch to understand, because this is exactly how most men live their lives. They grind against their circumstances with gritted teeth, they push against their neighbors with clenched fists, and they battle their own doubts with a fury that exhausts them before noon. They call this admirable persistence hustle. They wear their exhaustion like a badge of honor, and they secretly wonder why success feels so far away despite all their effort. Wallace Wattles looked at this spectacle of human struggle and gave it a different name. He called it friction, and he warned, with the precision of an engineer and the compassion of a teacher, that friction does not build empires. It kills creation before it can even take its first breath. Now shift your mind to a completely different image, one that represents the future we were promised but rarely experience. Imagine a maglev train, that miracle of modern engineering that seems to defy the very laws that govern our grinding existence. It floats on an invisible magnetic field, suspended in space with no contact between the train and the track below. There is no grinding here, no screaming metal, no heat building toward explosion. It moves at 300 miles per hour, yet inside the cabin, you could balance a coin on its edge and it would not fall. The silence is so profound that you can hear your own thoughts with crystal clarity. This is what Wattles called the frictionless way, and it is not science fiction. It is the natural state of a man who has learned to align himself with the movement of the universe itself. While the hustler grinds his gears and wonders why he is not advancing, the frictionless man glides past him at speeds that seem impossible. Yet he never breaks a sweat, never raises his voice, and never collapses in exhaustion at the end of the day. He has discovered something the grinding man has not, that the universe is not an obstacle to overcome, but a current to ride. And when you stop fighting that current, you move faster than you ever thought possible. In this video, we are going to pour the oil into your machine. We are going to dismantle, piece by piece, the false belief that struggle is noble and that grinding is the price of greatness. We will learn the one mental habit that Wallace Wattles identified as the master key to removing all resistance from your path. The habit that transforms you from a man fighting the world into a man moving with it. We will discover how the greatest creators in history moved with the speed of thought itself, passing through obstacles as if they were made of mist, not because they were lucky or chosen, but because they understood a principle that most men never learn. By the end of this journey, you will see that the only thing standing between you and the frictionless life is a single shift in how you position your mind relative to the great current of existence. The question is not whether you can learn this. The question is whether you are ready to stop grinding and start gliding. To understand what Wattles means by friction, you must first understand the physics of resistance, because the principle that governs engines and trains also governs human lives with the same mathematical precision. Friction is caused when two forces move in opposition to each other, when one surface tries to move east while another surface is locked in place or moving west. The result is heat, noise, and the gradual destruction of both surfaces. Now apply this principle to your life, and you will see it everywhere with sudden, almost painful clarity. If the universe is a great living presence moving eternally toward what Wattles calls more life, toward expansion, growth, increase, fuller expression, then every time you position your will in opposition to that movement, you create friction. When you wake up resenting your circumstances, you are grinding against the very foundation upon which you stand. When you envy your neighbor's success, you are creating heat between yourself and the abundance that surrounds you. When you doubt your vision, you are splitting your own engine in half, setting one part of your machine to move forward while the other pulls backward. And the tragic irony is that most men have been taught that this grinding is virtue, that this struggle is the mark of character, that this heat is the necessary price of achievement. But Wattles, with the calm authority of a man who has seen through the illusion, tells you plainly, The man who aligns his will with the movement of the universe removes all resistance, and when resistance is removed, speed increases exponentially while effort decreases to almost nothing. This alignment is not mystical, though it may sound that way to ears trained to hear only the language of force and conquest. It is as mechanical as the principles that allow the maglev train to float. The universe is not neutral. It has a direction, a purpose, an inherent movement toward complexity, beauty, and life in greater abundance. Every seed is programmed to become a tree. Every living thing is coded to grow. Every system, left to itself, organizes toward higher orders of expression. This is not philosophy. This is observable fact. And if this is true, then the logical conclusion is devastating in its simplicity. To align your will with this movement is to tap into a power that is already moving, already unstoppable, already victorious. You are not creating the current, you are positioning yourself within it. Think of a surfer who catches a wave at precisely the right moment. He is not generating the power. The ocean is generating the power. But because he has aligned his position and his timing with the wave's natural movement, he is carried forward with a force that would be impossible for him to generate alone. This is the essence of the frictionless way. You are not summoning supernatural forces. You are simply learning to stop fighting the natural force that is already present, already moving, already eager to carry you forward if you will only stop resisting it. But here is where most men fail, and fail catastrophically. They nod their heads at the idea of alignment. They agree in principle that fighting the universe is futile, and then they walk out the door and immediately resume the grinding. Why? Because they have not understood that alignment is not a one-time decision, but a continuous habit, a moment-by-moment choice to reposition their will. Every thought of resentment is a choice to grind. Every moment of envy is a choice to create heat. Every hour spent in complaint is an hour spent moving west while the universe moves east. And the cruelest part is that the grinding feels productive. It feels like you are doing something, fighting for something, proving something. The man who grinds can point to his exhaustion as evidence of his effort. But Wattles asks you to consider a different kind of evidence. Where are you actually going? Because if you are expending maximum energy and achieving minimum results, then you are not a warrior. You are a man running on a treadmill, generating heat and noise but covering no distance at all. The frictionless man, by contrast, moves silently, smoothly, and with a speed that astounds observers, precisely because he has learned to stop generating the resistance that most men mistake for effort. To remove friction, then, is to stop opposing the current and to become the current. This is the shift that changes everything. You are no longer a separate entity trying to impose your will on a resistant world. You are a wave in the ocean of life, and your individual movement is an expression of the ocean's larger movement. Does this mean you become passive? Does this mean you stop working? Absolutely not. The maglev train is not passive. It is moving at 300 miles per hour. But it is moving with the principles of physics, not against them. You will work and you will work with intensity, but the quality of your work changes. You are no longer grinding, you are gliding. You are no longer forcing, you are flowing. And the results you achieve in this state will dwarf anything you accomplished through the old method of resistance and struggle. Because when you align your will with the universe's will, you are no longer drawing solely from your own limited reservoir of energy. You are drawing from the infinite reservoir of the universe itself, and that reservoir never runs dry. Now we must address the most pervasive form of friction in human life, the one that poisons more dreams and destroys more potential than any other: competition. Competition is the ultimate friction because it is based on a lie. And that lie generates a grinding that never stops, a heat that never cools, a noise that drowns out all wisdom. The lie is this: there is not enough. Not enough wealth, not enough success, not enough opportunity, not enough room at the top for everyone who wants to get there. And if there is not enough, then the only way to get yours is to take it from someone else, to grind against your fellow men, to view them as obstacles rather than allies, to measure your progress by their failures. This is the mindset that turns life into a battlefield, and it creates friction on every level. Between you and others, between you and the world, and worst of all, between you and the universe itself. Because when you compete, you are declaring by your very actions that the universe is a place of scarcity, that creation is a finite pie that must be divided and fought over, that your gain must necessarily be someone else's loss. And when you make this declaration, the universe responds accordingly, not because it is punishing you, but because you have positioned yourself to grind rather than to glide. Wattles saw through this lie with the clarity of a master, and he offers you a different paradigm entirely, one that removes competition and all its attendant friction from your life forever. He says, you are to become a creator, not a competitor. Read that again slowly and feel the weight of what is being said. A creator does not compete because a creator is not taking from anyone. He is bringing something new into existence from the formless substance that permeates all space. He is not rearranging what already exists. He is adding to what exists. And when you shift from the mindset of competition to the mindset of creation, something miraculous happens. The friction disappears. You stop grinding against other men because you no longer need what they have. You stop resenting their success because their success has nothing to do with your success. You are operating in a completely different realm. They are playing checkers. You are composing symphonies. They are fighting over pieces of the existing pie. You are baking an entirely new pie from ingredients they did not even know existed. This shift from competitor to creator is not semantic. It is a revolution in how you move through the world. The competitor wakes up and asks, who do I need to beat today? The creator wakes up and asks, what do I need to bring into existence today? The competitor looks at a market and sees enemies. The creator looks at the same market and sees potential collaborators and eager customers. The competitor hoards his knowledge because he fears that if others learn what he knows, they will take his place. The creator shares his knowledge freely because he knows that the act of sharing creates more knowledge, and that the universe rewards the generous with insights that the stingy will never receive. Can you see how one path is lined with friction and the other is frictionless? The competitor is constantly grinding against his rivals, against his fears, against the ticking clock. The creator is constantly flowing. He is channeled by the universe itself. And his work is not labor in the old sense, but the joyful expression of life seeking to express itself more fully through him. But Wattles does not stop there, because he understands that the competitive mindset is deeply embedded in most men, taught from childhood, reinforced by culture, and mistaken for reality itself. So he demolishes the foundation of competition by revealing the metaphysical truth that makes competition not just unwise but unnecessary. He teaches that you live in a universe of formless substance, an intelligent and responsive medium that is capable of creating anything you can clearly imagine and consistently hold in your mind. This substance is not scarce, it is infinite. It is not divided up among the people who got there first. It is available to everyone, everywhere, all the time. When you create from this substance, you are not taking from anyone else's supply. You are drawing from the infinite, and the infinite is not diminished by your drawing. In fact, the more you draw, the more the substance flows, because you are giving it a channel through which to express itself. This is the great secret that the frictionless man knows and the competitor does not. Abundance is not a fixed resource to be divided. It is a flowing river to be tapped. And the moment you stop competing and start creating, you step out of the shallow, stagnant pool where everyone is fighting over drops, and you step into the river where the current is strong, the water is deep, and there is more than enough for everyone who knows how to align themselves with the flow. Now we must build a bridge between Wallace Wattles and another master who walked this path before him. Because wisdom does not exist in isolation. It forms a network, a web of interconnected insights. And when you can see how these insights support and reinforce each other, your understanding becomes unshakable. James Allen, in his timeless work As a Man Thinketh, gave us the principle of silent energy. The idea that true power does not announce itself with noise and fury, but moves quietly, steadily, and with an inner serenity that is its own proof of mastery. Allen taught that calmness of mind is not weakness, but the highest form of strength. because the calm mind conserves its energy instead of scattering it in 1,000 directions through worry, anger, and agitation. Now place Alan's teaching beside Wattles' teaching of the Frictionless Way, and you will see that they are not separate ideas, but two sides of the same coin. Alan gives you the internal condition, serenity. Wattles gives you the external expression, frictionless motion. And here is the critical connection. You cannot be frictionless if you are angry, because anger is resistance in its rawest form. Anger says, "This should not be," and in that declaration, you grind against what is. And you cannot be serene if you are grinding, because the heat and noise of friction will shatter any peace you try to cultivate. Think of it this way. Alan built the citadel of the mind, that fortress of inner peace where no external circumstance can disturb your equilibrium. But what good is a citadel if you leave the gates open and allow the enemy of friction to march in unchallenged? Wattles gives you the strategy for defending that citadel. By removing friction, you eliminate the primary threat to your serenity. Every time you align your will with the universe, you are strengthening the walls of Alan's fortress. Every time you shift from competition to creation, you are posting guards at the gates. The two masters are working in perfect harmony, and when you apply both teachings simultaneously, you create a condition of such profound stability that nothing in the external world can shake you, and yet you are moving through that world with a speed and effectiveness that appears almost supernatural to those who are still grinding. This is the power of synthesis, not choosing between masters, but weaving their insights together into a single, unbreakable cord. But there is more here, a deeper layer that most students miss on their first encounter with these teachings. Alan emphasized that the serene man is not inactive. He is intensely active, but his activity comes from a center of stillness, like the eye of a hurricane where all is calm even as tremendous forces swirl around it. Wattles teaches the same principle from a different angle. The frictionless man is not lazy or passive. He is extraordinarily productive, but his productivity does not cost him his peace because he has learned to work with the grain of the universe instead of against it. Do you see the pattern? Both masters are pointing to the same paradox, maximum output with minimum internal disturbance. The grinding man exhausts himself and accomplishes little. The frictionless, serene man accomplishes great things and ends the day refreshed rather than depleted. This is not magic. This is the natural result of working with universal principles instead of against them. When Alan tells you to guard your thoughts and maintain your inner calm, he is teaching you the mental discipline that makes frictionless movement possible. When Wattles tells you to align with the universe and abandon competition, he is teaching you the strategic positioning that protects the serenity Alan helped you build. Consider the practical implications of this synthesis in your daily life. You wake up and face a challenge, perhaps a difficult conversation, a complex project, a seemingly insurmountable obstacle. The grinding man approaches this challenge with tension, with the assumption that he must force his way through, that he must compete and fight and struggle. The heat builds immediately. Alan's serene man, by contrast, approaches the same challenge from his inner citadel of calm, refusing to let the external problem disturb his internal peace. But even the serene man can get stuck if he does not know how to move frictionlessly. He may maintain his peace, but fail to make progress. The man who has integrated both Alan and Wattles approaches the challenge differently altogether. He is serene, Alan, and he is aligned, Wattles. He does not fight the obstacle. He looks for the path of least resistance, the way to move with the universe rather than against it. He asks not, "How can I force this to work?" but "How is the universe already moving in this situation, and how can I position myself to move with it?" This is the question that changes everything, because it transforms every challenge from a battle to be won into a current to be ridden. And when you are riding the current with a serene mind, you discover that most of what you thought was difficult was only difficult because you were approaching it from the wrong angle, generating friction where none was necessary. The final piece of this bridge, the keystone that holds the entire structure together, is the recognition that both Alan and Wattles are teaching you to protect your energy. Alan teaches you to stop wasting energy on negative emotions, anger, worry, resentment, fear. These are leaks in your system, draining your power before you can apply it to your goals. Wattles teaches you to stop wasting energy on friction, competition, resistance, opposition to what is. These too are leaks, perhaps even more costly than emotional leaks, because they are disguised as productive effort. When you seal both sets of leaks, the emotional leaks Alan identifies and the strategic leaks Wattles identifies, you suddenly have access to a reservoir of energy you did not know you possessed. This is not new energy being created. This is your existing energy no longer being squandered. And with this conserved energy, properly directed through serene focus and frictionless movement, you become a force that the world cannot help but respond to. You are the immovable rock, Alan's serenity, and the unstoppable current, Wattles' frictionless motion, at the same time, and this combination makes you truly great. Now we turn to another master who walked this path and left us a map that connects directly to Wattles' teaching, Florence Scovel Shinn, whose principle of non-resistance provides a shortcut, a direct route to the frictionless state that bypasses years of unnecessary struggle. Shinn taught, with the clarity of someone who had tested these principles in the laboratory of her own life, that resistance is the root of all suffering and all failure. When you resist what is, you lock yourself into what is. When you fight against your current circumstances, you give those circumstances power over you. When you declare war on poverty, you bind yourself to poverty with chains of your own forging. This is not mysticism. This is psychology, and it is physics, and it is the same principle that Wattles systematizes in his teaching of the Frictionless Way. Shinn gives you the spiritual insight. Wattles gives you the mechanical explanation. And when you understand both, you hold in your hands a tool of such power that it can reshape your entire life in a matter of months, not years. Shinn's great contribution was to make the principle of non-resistance practical and accessible. She taught that you do not resist by simply accepting defeat or becoming passive in the face of injustice. Non-resistance is not surrender. It is a strategic repositioning of your consciousness. When you stop resisting what is, you free up the energy that was locked in that resistance, and you can now redirect that energy toward creating what you want. This is precisely what Wattles teaches when he says that every moment you spend hating your poverty is energy subtracted from your vision of wealth. The two teachings are identical in their core insight. Resistance is expensive and you cannot afford it. Every time you complain about your circumstances, you are making a payment on a debt that only grows larger with interest. Every time you envy another's success, you are writing a check that your energy account cannot cover. Shinn saw this clearly, and she taught her students to bless what is, not because what is perfect, but because blessing is the opposite of resistance, and only in the absence of resistance can you move forward with real speed. But Wattles takes Shinn's insight and systematizes it in a way that makes it impossible to ignore or misunderstand. He explains that resistance wastes the very energy needed to create wealth, to build success, to manifest your vision. Think about this carefully, because it is easy to skim over the profound implications. You have a finite amount of energy available to you each day: mental energy, emotional energy, creative energy. This is your budget, your capital, your fuel. Now, you can spend this energy in one of two ways. You can spend it resisting what you do not want, or you can spend it creating what you do want. You cannot do both. The man who spends his morning complaining about his job has already spent the energy he needed to envision and create a better job. The man who spends his evening resenting his financial situation has already depleted the energy he needed to formulate and execute a plan for financial improvement. This is not a moral failing. This is a mechanical reality. You are an energy system, and where you direct your energy determines what you create or fail to create in your life. Shinn understood this so deeply that she made it the centerpiece of her teaching. She would tell her students, "What you resist persists." This is not a clever aphorism. This is a description of how consciousness works. When you resist something, you must hold it in your mind in order to resist it. You must think about it, focus on it, give it your attention. And whatever you give your attention to, you energize. You make it more real, more present, more powerful in your experience. The man who resists his poverty thinks about his poverty all day long. The man who resists his loneliness is constantly aware of his loneliness. The man who resists his failures cannot stop replaying his failures in his mind. And in every case, the thing being resisted grows stronger, not weaker, because resistance is a form of attention, and attention is energy, and energy feeds growth. Wattles would say this is friction at its most destructive. You are grinding against the very thing you want to escape, and the grinding keeps you locked in place even as you convince yourself that you are fighting to get free. The shortcut that Shin and Wattles both offer then is this: stop fighting, stop resisting, stop grinding. Accept what is without judgment, not because it is good, but because it simply is, and your resistance to it changes nothing except your own energy level. And then, and this is the critical part that transforms acceptance from passivity into power, redirect all that conserved energy toward your vision. You are not accepting defeat, you are accepting reality as the starting point for creation. The man who denies that he is currently poor cannot take the steps necessary to become rich because he is too busy maintaining the fiction that he is not poor. The man who accepts that he is currently poor without resistance, without shame, without wasted energy on resentment, can now calmly and clearly ask, "What must I do to change this?" And the answer will come because he has created the mental space for it to enter. This is how you move from grinding to gliding. You stop pushing against what is, and you start flowing toward what can be. And the speed with which you move once you make this shift will astonish you, because you have been carrying a weight you did not know you were carrying, and you have just set it down. We now arrive at the heart of Wattles' teaching, the specific mental habit that removes all friction from your life and transforms you from a man who struggles to a man who glides. He calls this habit consecration. And while the word may sound religious to modern ears, you must understand that Wattles is using it with mechanical precision, describing a specific orientation of the will that produces specific, predictable results. Consecration in Wattles' system means dedicating your will entirely to what he calls the advancement of life. It means that every action you take, every goal you pursue, every plan you make is aligned with the universe's fundamental purpose: to express more life, more abundantly, in more forms, with greater beauty and complexity. When you consecrate yourself in this way, something remarkable happens. The universe stops blocking you and starts pushing you. The wind, which was in your face when you were moving in opposition, is suddenly at your back. And this is not metaphor. This is describing a real shift in how reality responds to you when you align your individual will with the universal will. Most men live their entire lives without ever understanding what will is or how it works. They confuse will with stubbornness, or with the ability to endure suffering, or with the capacity to force things to happen through sheer effort. But Wattles teaches that will is not force. Will is direction. Your will is the steering mechanism of your consciousness, and like any steering mechanism, it can point you toward alignment with your environment, or it can point you into opposition. The consecrated will is pointed toward life, toward growth, increase, expansion, fuller expression. The unconsecrated will is pointed toward the self in isolation, toward personal gain at the expense of others, toward competition, toward the hoarding of resources, toward the advancement of the individual ego without regard for the larger movement of life. And here is the key insight that most men miss. The consecrated will is actually more selfish in the best sense, because it gets you what you want faster and with less resistance. When you say, "I want to get rich so that I can help life express itself more fully," you are not being altruistic in some weak, self-sacrificing way. You are being strategically brilliant. You are aligning yourself with the current that is already moving, and therefore you will move faster and farther than the man who says, "I want to get rich so that I can prove I am better than my neighbor." Think about what consecration actually does to your daily experience. Before consecration, you wake up with a divided mind. Part of you wants success, but another part of you feels guilty about wanting success. Part of you is moving toward your goals, but another part is wondering if you deserve those goals or if pursuing them makes you selfish. This internal division is friction of the worst kind. It is like having two hands on the steering wheel. pulling in opposite directions. You move slowly, erratically, exhausting yourself with the effort required to overcome your own internal resistance. But when you consecrate your will to the advancement of life, this division disappears. Now your entire being is pointing in one direction. You want to get rich, yes, but not to hoard, not to dominate, not to prove anything. You want to get rich because wealth is one of the ways that life expresses itself more fully. Because with wealth you can create beauty, support others, fund new creations, and participate in the universe's fundamental movement toward more. With this consecration, guilt vanishes, doubt diminishes, internal friction drops to nearly zero, and with all your energy now flowing in one direction, you discover that you can accomplish in months what previously would have taken years. But consecration goes deeper still, because it changes not just your internal state, but your relationship with every person and circumstance you encounter. The unconsecrated man sees the world as a collection of obstacles and opponents. His boss is a tyrant holding him back. His customers are problems to be managed. His competitors are enemies to be destroyed. Every interaction is a potential source of friction because he is moving through the world with an adversarial mindset. The consecrated man sees something entirely different. His boss is a person through whom life is trying to express itself, and if the boss is frustrated or tyrannical, it is because that expression is being blocked. So instead of resisting the boss, the consecrated man looks for ways to help the boss express more fully, which eliminates the friction between them. His customers are not problems, but opportunities to serve the advancement of life by providing real value. His competitors are not enemies, but fellow creators working in the same field, and their success does not threaten him because he is drawing from the infinite, not the finite. Can you see how this changes everything? The consecrated man moves through the same world as the unconsecrated man, but he experiences almost no friction because he has removed the adversarial stance that generates friction. The final and perhaps most powerful aspect of consecration is that it makes you unstoppable in a way that mere determination or willpower never could. Determination can carry you for a while, but it exhausts itself because it is still a form of force, a pushing against resistance. Consecration does not exhaust itself because it is not pushing, it is aligning. When you are consecrated to the advancement of life, you wake up each day with a clarity of purpose that makes decisions simple and action inevitable. You do not have to motivate yourself, because motivation is what you need when you are trying to force yourself to do something that you are not fully committed to. The consecrated man needs no motivation because he is not forcing, he is expressing. The work he does is not labor in the old sense. It is the natural outflow of a will that has found its proper alignment. And because there is no internal resistance, no divided mind, no guilt or doubt creating friction, he can work with an intensity and consistency that appears superhuman to outside observers, but which feels effortless to him. This is the secret of every great creator in history, not that they had more willpower or more discipline, but that they had consecrated their will to something larger than themselves, and in doing so, they removed the friction that stops most men before they even begin. Now we must address the second pillar that supports the frictionless way, the companion to consecration, the practice that turns theory into lived experience. Wattles calls this loving the process, and it is perhaps the most counterintuitive, yet most essential element of removing friction from your daily life. Most men hate their current circumstances. They view where they are as a prison from which they must escape, a punishment they must endure, a problem they must solve before they can be happy. And this hatred, this constant resistance to the present moment, is friction in its purest form. Every morning you wake up hating your job is a morning you begin with the engine already grinding. Every hour you spend resenting your current level of success is an hour spent generating heat instead of progress. Wattles saw this pattern clearly, and he teaches something that sounds almost absurd to the grinding man. You must love where you are right now, not despite the fact that it is not where you want to be, but because it is the springboard to where you are going. This is not positive thinking in some shallow, self-deceptive sense. Wattles is not asking you to pretend that poverty is wealth or that failure is success. He is asking you to recognize a mechanical truth. Your current place is the necessary platform for your next place. The man who is poor and hates his poverty is locked into poverty by his own hatred, because that hatred is resistance, and resistance generates friction, and friction prevents movement. The man who is poor and loves his poverty, not loves being poor, but loves the current moment as the precise and perfect starting point for his journey to wealth, is free to move. He is not grinding against where he is using where he is as leverage to get where he is going. This is the difference between the prisoner who spends his energy rattling the bars of his cell and the prisoner who spends his energy digging a tunnel. Both want freedom, but only one will achieve it, because only one is moving frictionlessly toward the goal. What does it mean practically to love the process? It means performing each task that is currently before you with what Wattles calls perfect action. Perfect action does not mean flawless execution. It means complete presence, full engagement, the bringing of your entire attention to the work at hand without rushing to finish, without wishing you were somewhere else, without the internal complaint that this work is beneath you. The man who hates his job but shows up because he needs the money is generating friction with every keystroke, every customer interaction, every minute spent at his desk. The heat builds, the grinding never stops, and he goes home each day more depleted than when he arrived. The man who practices perfect action, by contrast, brings his full presence to the same job. He is not pretending to love the job for its own sake. He loves the job because it is the current expression of his consecrated will to advance life. He is there to do that work perfectly, to bring something into existence that was not there before, to serve his customers fully, to contribute to the organization's purpose. And in this state of perfect action, something miraculous happens. The friction disappears. Time moves differently, work becomes flow, and at the end of the day, he is not depleted. He is energized because he has spent the day creating rather than resisting. But there is a deeper layer here, a truth about the relationship between present action and future results that most men never grasp. The grinding man thinks he must hate his current place in order to have the motivation to leave it. He believes that resentment is fuel, that dissatisfaction is the engine of change, and so he pours resentment into every moment, thinking this will speed his progress. But it does the opposite. Resentment is not fuel. It is sand in the engine. Every moment spent hating where you are is a moment spent reinforcing the mental patterns that keep you there. Your mind is learning, this is who I am, a man stuck in a place I hate. And the mind, being the faithful servant it is, works to keep you consistent with your self-image. The man who loves his process, by contrast, is teaching his mind a different lesson with every moment of perfect action. This is who I am, a man who does great work wherever he is, a man who creates value under any circumstances, a man who is always advancing life. And the mind, receiving this message, works to create circumstances consistent with this self-image. Can you see the difference? One man is training himself for failure. The other is training himself for success. And the training happens not in some future moment of achievement, but in the present moment of action. This brings us to the profound insight that loving the process is actually how you lubricate the day. Think of your daily routine as a machine that must run from morning to night. If that machine is filled with resentment, resistance, and the grinding of opposed forces, it will generate tremendous heat and noise, it will break down frequently, and it will exhaust you. But if you lubricate that machine with perfect action, with presence, with love for the process itself, the same routine becomes smooth, quiet, efficient. You are doing the same work, but you are experiencing it completely differently, and you are getting completely different results. The grinding man and the frictionless man may have identical schedules, identical tasks, identical external circumstances, but they are living in different universes because one is experiencing constant resistance while the other is experiencing flow. And it is the quality of your attention, the nature of your engagement, the presence or absence of internal resistance that determines which universe you inhabit. This is not philosophy. This is the difference between a life of suffering and a life of power. And the choice is made not once, but in every moment, with every action, with every thought about the work you are doing right now. We now turn to the element that can destroy even the most perfectly consecrated will and the most loving engagement with process: doubt. If you have understood everything thus far, you might think you are ready to move frictionlessly through life, but there is one more enemy to address, one more source of resistance that must be removed if you are to achieve true velocity. Wattles teaches that doubt is sand in the gears, and this metaphor is more precise than it might first appear. Sand does not announce itself dramatically like a broken part or a seized engine. Sand is subtle. It works slowly. It grinds away at the surfaces that should be moving smoothly against each other, creating microscopic damage that accumulates over time until the entire system fails. And this is exactly what doubt does to your progress. Every time you worry, will it happen? You are throwing a handful of sand into your mental machinery. Every time you question whether your vision is realistic, whether you are capable, whether the universe will really respond to your consecrated will, you are adding friction to a system that was designed to run smooth and fast. The problem with doubt is that it feels reasonable. It masquerades as prudence, as wisdom, as the voice of experience teaching you not to get your hopes up. The doubting voice says, "I am protecting you from disappointment. I am keeping you grounded in reality. I am making sure you do not become one of those delusional dreamers who wastes his life chasing impossible goals." And because this voice sounds so sensible, so mature, so unlike the naive enthusiasm of the foolish optimist, most men listen to it. They allow doubt to take up residence in their minds, not realizing that they have just invited the enemy into the citadel. Because here is what doubt actually does. It divides your will. You are moving forward with one part of your mind, while another part is pulling backward, questioning, hesitating, preparing for failure. And this internal division is the worst friction of all, worse than external obstacles, worse than opposition from others, because you are fighting yourself. You are trying to accelerate and brake at the same time, and the result is that you burn out the engine before you have traveled any significant distance. Wattles insists that the frictionless habit requires what he calls sustained faith, and you must understand that faith, in his system, is not religious belief. It is mechanical confidence. Faith is the mental state in which you act with the calmness of a man who has already won, because you understand that the principles you are operating by are as reliable as the laws of physics. When you plant a seed, you do not stand over it every day doubting whether it will grow. You do not dig it up to check if the roots are forming. You plant it, you water it, you give it sunlight, and you move on with your life, confident that the seed contains within itself the program and the power to become a plant. This confidence is not blind. It is based on observation of how seeds work. Sustained faith is the same confidence applied to your vision. You have planted the seed of your vision in the formless substance through your consecrated will and your perfect action. You have given it the conditions it needs to grow. Now you must trust the process and stop grinding away at it with doubt. The seed does not need your anxiety. It needs your consistent, calm attention and your freedom from interference. But sustaining this faith is difficult because you are surrounded by evidence that seems to contradict it. You look around and see people who have tried and failed. You remember your own past failures. You notice that weeks or even months may pass without visible results, and the doubting voice grows louder. See, it is not working. You are wasting your time. The universe is not responding. Wattles was wrong. And here is where most men quit, not because the process was not working, but because they did not understand that there is always a gap between planting and harvest, between cause and effect, between the invisible work and the visible result. The farmer does not doubt the seed just because it has not sprouted by the second day. He knows that growth is happening beneath the surface, invisible to the eye, and that his job is to maintain the conditions for growth, not to dig up the seed in a panic. Your job as a man committed to the frictionless way is to maintain your faith during the invisible stage, to keep acting as if the result is certain even when the external evidence is not yet present. This is what separates the amateur from the master. Not intelligence, not talent, not even opportunity, but the ability to sustain faith when everything around you is screaming that you should doubt. And here is the final insight about doubt, the one that makes it absolutely unacceptable if you want to move without friction. Doubt is not just passive questioning, it is active creation of the opposite of what you want. When you doubt your vision, you are not simply failing to create what you want, you are actually creating the conditions that prevent what you want from manifesting. You are sending mixed signals to the formless substance, saying, "I want this," with your consecrated will, and "I do not believe I can have this," with your doubt. And the substance, responding to the totality of your consciousness, receives a confused message and produces confused results. This is why the man who doubts gets ambiguous outcomes that seem to almost work, but never quite succeed. He is creating and destroying simultaneously, moving forward and backward at the same time, generating friction at the most fundamental level of his being. The only solution is to remove doubt entirely, not by pretending you have no questions, but by choosing to act on faith despite your questions. You proceed as if success is certain. You make decisions as if the universe is responding. You move as if the wind is at your back, because when you move this way consistently, the wind becomes real. The final element in removing friction is achieving what Wattles calls the unified mind. And this is where everything we have discussed comes together into a single coherent whole. The unified mind is a mind without internal contradiction, without competing voices, without one part sabotaging what another part is trying to create. And this unity is essential because, as Wattles teaches with devastating clarity, you cannot have one part of you wanting wealth and another part thinking money is evil. That internal conflict is the worst friction of all. It tears the machine apart from the inside. It creates a grinding that never stops. It ensures that you will exhaust yourself without making real progress. Every minute you spend in internal conflict is a minute stolen from creation. Every hour your mind spends arguing with itself is an hour that the formless substance receives confused instructions and produces confused results. Most men do not realize they have a divided mind because the contradiction is hidden beneath the surface, operating in the realm of subconscious beliefs and inherited assumptions. On the conscious level, they genuinely want success. They set goals, they make plans, they take action. But beneath the surface, there are other voices, often planted there by well-meaning parents or religious teachers or cultural conditioning. Rich people are greedy. Money is the root of all evil. Spiritual people should not care about material things. If you succeed, you will lose yourself. These beliefs operate like saboteurs in the basement, quietly undermining every effort the conscious mind makes to advance. And the result is a life of frustration. The man is working hard, doing seemingly all the right things, but his results are mediocre, inconsistent, or non-existent. He blames circumstances, bad luck, other people. But the real problem is that he is fighting himself, and no amount of external action can overcome internal division. Wattles teaches that you must become single-minded, and this is not about narrow focus. It is about internal alignment. Every part of you must be moving in the same direction. Your conscious goals and your subconscious beliefs must agree. Your actions and your values must harmonize. Your vision of who you want to become and your understanding of what that becoming requires must be unified. This is achieved not through force but through the patient work of examination and reconciliation. You must bring the contradictions into the light and resolve them. If you believe money is evil but want to be rich, you must either abandon the goal or transform the belief. Wattles would tell you to transform the belief by recognizing that money, like all forms of energy, is neutral. It amplifies who you already are. If you are generous, money makes you more generous. If you are creative, money gives you more resources to create. Money is not the enemy. Poverty is, because poverty restricts life, limits expression, and keeps you small. When you see this clearly, the contradiction dissolves, and suddenly all your energy flows in one direction. The metaphor Wattles uses is perfect. Imagine a machine where every component is pulling in a different direction. The wheels want to go forward, but the brakes are engaged. The accelerator is being pressed, but the emergency brake is on. The steering wheel is turned right, but the rear wheels are angled left. What happens to this machine? It does not move, or it moves erratically, and most of its energy is converted not into forward motion, but into heat and noise, pure friction. Now imagine the same machine with every component aligned, the wheels facing forward, the brakes released, the accelerator pressed, the entire system working as a unified whole toward a single destination. The friction drops to nearly zero. The energy that was being wasted in internal conflict is now available for propulsion. The machine moves with a speed and smoothness that would be impossible for the divided version. This is what happens when you unify your mind. You are still the same person, with the same basic energy and capabilities, but suddenly all that energy is flowing in one direction instead of being scattered in a dozen competing directions. And the results change so dramatically that it appears you have become a different person, but really you have just become an aligned person. The process of unifying the mind is ongoing, not a one-time event, because new contradictions will emerge as you grow and take on new challenges. But the habit, once established, becomes easier each time you apply it. You notice the friction, the hesitation, the guilt, the internal argument, and you immediately recognize it as a signal that there is a contradiction to be resolved. Instead of pushing through with willpower, which just creates more heat, you pause and ask, what part of me is resisting this? What belief is creating this friction? And when you identify the belief, you can examine it. Is it true? Is it serving me? Is it aligned with my consecrated will to advance life? If not, you release it, not through denial, but through understanding. And with each contradiction resolved, the friction in your life decreases, your speed increases, and you move closer to the state Wattles describes as frictionless, where the whole machine of your being is moving in perfect unity toward a single, clearly defined destination, and nothing can stop you because nothing is stopping you from within. We have traveled far, and now we arrive at the summit where the view becomes clear and the entire landscape of understanding spreads out before you. Let us synthesize what Wattles has taught us, bringing all the threads together into a single, unbreakable cord of wisdom. The fundamental insight is this: struggle is optional. Read that again, slowly, and let it penetrate beneath your habitual assumptions about how life works. You have been taught that life is hard, that success requires suffering, that you must grind yourself down to achieve anything worth having. And there is a terrible partial truth in this teaching. Hard work is indeed necessary. Effort is required. Discipline is essential. But, and this is the crucial distinction that most men never grasp, hard work is not the same as hard struggle. Work is the application of energy toward a goal. Struggle is the grinding of opposed forces, the friction of misalignment, the heat generated when you fight against the grain of the universe instead of working with it. Wattles has shown us that the man who oils his machine, who aligns his will with the universe, who moves from competition to creation, who consecrates his purpose to the advancement of life, who loves his process and performs perfect action, who removes doubt and unifies his mind. This man works as hard as anyone, perhaps harder, but he does not struggle. He glides. He flows. He moves with the speed of thought while the grinding man is still stuck at the starting line, generating heat and noise, but covering no distance. The frictionless man accomplishes in months what takes the grinding man years, not because he has found a shortcut around work, but because he has removed the resistance that makes work inefficient. He has discovered that when you stop fighting yourself, stop fighting others, and stop fighting the universe, suddenly all the energy that was being consumed by those fights becomes available for creation. And with that energy properly directed, you become unstoppable. This is not theory. This is not wishful thinking. This is mechanics, as reliable and predictable as the laws that govern engines and trains. When you reduce friction, speed increases while effort decreases. When you align with the movement of the universe instead of opposing it, you tap into a power infinitely greater than your individual strength. When you shift from taking to creating, from competing to contributing, from resisting to flowing, you change the entire game you are playing. And the results you achieve, the life you build, the person you become, all of this transforms in ways that would have seemed impossible when you were still grinding. The oil is available. The principles are clear. The choice is yours. Will you continue to run your engine without lubrication, generating heat and noise until you explode? Or will you learn the frictionless way and discover what it feels like to move through life with speed, silence, and power? Think about what this means for your actual life, not in some abstract future, but starting today. You will still wake up early. You will still work hard. You will still face challenges and obstacles. But the quality of your experience changes completely when you remove friction. The work that once exhausted you now energizes you because you are no longer fighting it. The obstacles that once seemed insurmountable now appear as currents you can ride rather than walls you must batter down. The people who once opposed you now become allies or irrelevant because you are no longer competing with them. You are creating in a space they did not even know existed. This is not magic. This is the natural result of applying principles that have always been true, but which few men ever learn. And now you know them. The question is whether you will use them. The final piece of the synthesis is recognizing that everything we have discussed, consecration, perfect action, sustained faith, the unified mind, is really about becoming a channel for life itself. You are not advancing your small, separate ego against a hostile world. You are allowing the universe's fundamental movement toward more life to express itself through you. And when you do this, when you truly align yourself in this way, you become something more than an individual struggling for individual gain. You become an instrument of creation, and the universe pours through you with a force that is limited only by the width of the channel you provide. Make the channel wide by removing all friction. Make it clear by unifying your mind. Make it strong by sustaining your faith. And then watch what happens when the full force of life itself begins to move through you without resistance. Now we must ground this wisdom in the voice of the Master himself, because Wallace Wattles did not write his teachings to remain abstract principles. He wrote them as practical instructions for living, and he left us words that serve as both compass and confirmation. Among all his teachings, one statement stands out as the perfect encapsulation of the frictionless way, the sentence that contains the entire philosophy in compressed form. The grateful mind is constantly fixed upon the best. Therefore, it tends to become the best. Read this carefully because it is describing the mechanism through which friction is removed and greatness is achieved. The grateful mind is the frictionless mind because gratitude is the opposite of resistance, the antidote to competition, the natural state of a consciousness that has aligned itself with the movement of the universe. Think about what gratitude actually does to your experience of the present moment. When you are grateful for where you are not resisting where you are. You are accepting it, appreciating it, recognizing the value it holds as the launching point for where you are going. This is not the gratitude of settling, of accepting less than you are capable of pretending to be satisfied with mediocrity. This is the gratitude of a man who understands that every station of his journey is perfect and necessary, that the universe has placed him exactly where he needs to be, to learn what he needs to learn, and to create what he needs to create. When you are in this state of gratitude, friction disappears. You are not grinding against your circumstances. You are using your circumstances. You are not fighting your current position. You are leveraging your current position. And this shift from resistance to gratitude is the shift from friction to flow. But Wattles goes deeper because he explains that the grateful mind is constantly fixed upon the best. This is the key to sustained faith and the antidote to doubt. The doubting mind is constantly scanning for evidence of failure, for reasons to worry, for signs that things might not work out. And because the mind finds what it seeks, the doubting mind lives in a world of problems and obstacles and reasons to quit. The grateful mind operates on a completely different frequency. It is fixed upon the best outcomes, the best interpretations, the best possibilities. And because the mind finds what it seeks, the grateful mind lives in a world of opportunities and solutions and reasons to continue. This is not about ignoring reality. This is about choosing which aspect of reality to focus on. Because reality is complex, containing both problems and possibilities, both obstacles and opportunities. The man who fixes his mind on the best is not being naive. He is being strategic. He is directing his consciousness toward the elements of reality that empower him rather than the elements that paralyze him. And then comes the final piece of Wattles' statement, the part that reveals why this practice is so powerful. Therefore, it tends to become the best. The grateful mind, fixed upon the best, tends to become the best. This is not wishful thinking. This is describing how consciousness works. You move toward what you focus on. You become what you consistently think about. You create circumstances that match the dominant patterns of your thoughts. When your mind is constantly fixed on the best, you are programming yourself for greatness. You are training yourself to see possibilities where others see impossibilities. You are developing the mental habits of a creator rather than a competitor, of a man who flows rather than grinds. And over time, these habits compound, these patterns strengthen, and you become the man who moves without friction through a world where everyone else is still grinding. This is Wattles' great gift to you, a system for removing friction that is not based on motivation or willpower or positive thinking alone, but on the deep principles that govern how consciousness interacts with reality. Gratitude is not just a nice feeling. It is lubrication for the engine of your life. Fixing your mind on the best is not just optimism. It is strategic positioning for maximum effectiveness. And the tendency to become the best is not a promise of magic. It is the natural result of aligning yourself with the universe's fundamental movement toward more life, more beauty, more complexity, more power. When Wattles tells you that the grateful mind tends to become the best, he is handing you the master key to the frictionless way. Use it. Every day. In every moment. And watch as the grinding stops, the heat dissipates, the noise fades, and you begin to move with a speed and silence that seems impossible to those who are still locked in struggle. The wisdom of the masters is not meant to be collected like trophies on a shelf. It is meant to be applied, tested, lived. Wattles has given you a map to a life without friction. Alan has shown you how to maintain the serenity that makes frictionless movement possible. Shin has taught you the principle of non-resistance that removes the sand from your gears. And now you stand at a threshold, the point where knowledge must become action or it remains worthless. You have the principles. You understand the mechanics. You see the path clearly. The only question that remains is whether you will walk it. Will you continue to grind, to heat up, to exhaust yourself in struggle? Or will you oil your engine, align your will, consecrate your purpose, and discover what it feels like to move through life the way the maglev train moves through space, silent, smooth, and faster than you ever thought possible? We have reached the end of this transmission, but for you, this is the beginning. You now possess knowledge that most men will never encounter, much less understand and apply. But knowledge alone changes nothing. Understanding alone removes no friction. The principles we have explored are not magic spells that work simply by being known. They are tools that must be picked up, practiced, and integrated into the fabric of your daily life. And so we arrive at the moment of challenge, the point where you must decide who you will be and how you will move through the world from this day forward. Will you be the man who nods in agreement but changes nothing, who adds this video to his mental library of interesting ideas but continues to grind his way through life? Or will you be the man who takes what he has learned and immediately begins the work of removing friction from every area of his existence? The challenge Wattles issues through his teaching is deceptively simple. Stop grinding, start gliding. But simple does not mean easy, because you are fighting against years of conditioning, against cultural narratives that glorify struggle, against your own habits of resistance and competition and doubt. The first step is always the hardest, because you must act on faith before you have evidence. You must begin to move frictionlessly before you feel frictionless. You must practice gratitude when you do not yet feel grateful. This is where most men quit, not because the principles do not work, but because they refuse to apply them long enough to see the results. They try consecration for a day and wonder why they are not yet rich. They practice perfect action for a week and complain that nothing has changed. They remove doubt for a moment and then let it flood back in when the first obstacle appears. And so they return to grinding, convinced that the frictionless way is a beautiful theory, but not practical for real life. But you are not most men, or you would not have stayed with this teaching until now. You have come this far because some part of you recognizes truth when you hear it, because some deeper knowing within you understands that there is a better way to live than the way you have been taught. And so I challenge you now to commit to this path, not just intellectually but practically, not just for today but for the long journey ahead. Commit to examining your mind for internal contradictions and resolving them. Commit to consecrating your will to the advancement of life rather than the aggrandizement of your ego. Commit to performing perfect action in every task, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. Commit to sustaining faith when the evidence is not yet visible. Commit to gratitude as a daily practice, not just a fleeting emotion. And commit to watching for friction in all its forms, resistance, competition, doubt, resentment, and removing it the moment you notice it arising. The final call to action is this. Make your commitment public, not to perform for others, but to solidify your own resolve through declaration. In the comments below, write these words. I move without friction. These 4 words are not just a statement. They are a declaration of intent, a line drawn in the sand, a commitment to a new way of being. When you write them, you are telling the universe that you have chosen alignment over opposition, creation over competition, flow over grinding. And the universe, as Wattles teaches, responds to clear declarations made with firm resolve. You are not asking permission. You are not hoping things will change. You are declaring that you are changing, that you are removing friction, that you are becoming the frictionless man starting now. And with that declaration, something shifts in you and around you, because you have positioned yourself to receive what has always been available, but which you were previously blocking through resistance. This is not the end. This is the beginning of your acceleration. You have been grinding for so long that you have forgotten what smooth movement feels like, what it is like to work hard but not struggle hard, to advance rapidly but peacefully, to achieve great things without sacrificing your serenity. Now you're about to remember, or perhaps to discover for the first time, what Wallace Wattles knew and what he tried to teach everyone who would listen. That life is not meant to be a grinding ordeal, but a gliding adventure. That you are not here to compete for scraps, but to create from abundance. That the universe is not your enemy, but your ally. And that when you align with its movement, you become unstoppable. The oil is in your hands. Pour it into your engine. Watch the friction disappear. Feel the speed increase, and as you begin to glide past the men who are still grinding, remember this moment and this teaching, and share it with others who are ready to learn. Because the world needs more frictionless men, men who create rather than compete, who flow rather than fight, who demonstrate through their own lives that there is a better way. Let the acceleration begin. Write your declaration, make your commitment, and step into the frictionless way. Your journey starts now.